There's something about a Monday morning that always feels like a test. The air is sharper, the roads are busier, coffee is somehow more necessary. John sat in his car, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the glass building ahead of him, his new workplace, his new beginning. He still couldn't believe it. After 3 months of silence, an email thread long forgotten, and a hope he'd quietly buried, he'd received that call last Friday. "Hi John, this is Temba from HR. Would like to formally offer you the position." He'd gone completely still, then laughed, then cried, then called his parents, both of them at once, just to hear their voices overlapping with joy and disbelief. Now, sitting in the parking lot, that disbelief still hadn't worn off. The world had such a funny way of testing him. It took everything from him, his pride, his certainty, his love, his home, only to hand it all back, piece by piece, once he'd learned how to live without it. He adjusted the rearview mirror and saw his reflection, older, a little worn out around the eyes, but different, calmer, grounded, the kind of man who knew what it meant to start over and what it cost. This time, he whispered to himself, "I won't lose myself again," because he had before, in chasing respectability, in chasing an image of success that wasn't his own. For years, he'd been sprinting towards a version of himself that everyone else had built, until life stopped him, until the silence, the long hours of nothing, forced him to ask who he truly was. And he knew now. He was both things, the engineer and the artist. He belonged in the lab and behind the lens. He could build bridges by day and stories by night. He no longer had to choose between logic and light. He thought of his father, the early morning coffees, the soccer games, that talk about failure not being final. He thought of his mother, the woman who once demanded excellence, now cheering for his peace of mind. And his siblings, the harmonies, the laughter, the messy Sunday kitchen full of song. His family had seen him fall apart and still welcomed him home without judgment. That was grace, not loud, not poetic, just steady, and it had saved him. He remembered the night after that sneaker shoot, sitting on his bed, looking through the photos that had become the campaign's favorite. It was the first time in a long time he'd felt enough. Not almost, not if only, just enough. He took a deep breath. Even now, the nerves were still there, that same flutter in his stomach, the whisper that asked, "Do you belong here?" But now he knew what to say back. He smiled slightly and answered aloud, "Yes, I do." The nerves didn't mean weakness. They meant care. They meant this mattered. And if this mattered, he was exactly where he needed to be. He reached for his phone. A message from his dad blinked on the screen. "Proud of you, son. Remember, take it one day at a time. And don't forget to take pictures of your new view." He laughed softly, typical dad. He finally opened the car door. The morning breeze hit his face, fresh, alive. Inside the building, the air smelled like new paint and ambition. Receptionists smiled, lanyards clicked, the hum of computers filled the air. For a second, it felt surreal. This was the same John who once couldn't afford rent, who once had to decide whether to live in his car or move back home. The same John who begged his ex for understanding, who'd packed his things in silence, who'd lost everything except the small, stubborn flame of hope. And that flame had carried him here. He found his new desk, clean, bright, waiting. He set his coffee down, placed a small photo next to the monitor, a picture he had taken of his family on a Sunday afternoon, sunlight spilling through the curtains. He sat down, took one deep breath, and smiled. That night, after his first day, He drove home under the orange Joburg sky. The city lights looked different now, not as something he needed to conquer, but as something that had shaped him. He passed the streets where his old flat had been, the one where the afternoons felt endless. He didn't hate that place anymore. It had been his classroom, his breaking point and his breakthrough. Back home, his mom was in the kitchen cooking, his dad reading the newspaper, his siblings arguing over who burnt the toast. It was chaotic, loud, warm. He grabbed his camera, pointed it towards them, click. Another moment captured, another reminder of how far he'd come. Life hadn't handed him what he wanted. It had given him what he needed. And through the long hours, the heartbreaks, the quiet afternoons, and the heavy nights, he'd learned that sometimes the greatest success is simply finding your way back to yourself.